Well, it looks like we're settled in, and most everyone who was coming has arrived. So let me just introduce our program today. My name is Shireen Ash. I'm a librarian at the Corte Madera Library, and I'm very pleased to welcome you here to this program today, 20 Great Plants for Your Garden, presented by two established and flourishing gardeners, Arlene Banks and Jerry Cooper, excuse me, I misread that. So before we get started, just to let you know, we are recording this, so it will be available to be viewed within about 2 weeks after today. I'm going to ask everyone to stay mute, please, during the program. If you have any questions, you can put them in the chat, and there'll be time for a Q&A at the end. So our speakers today, as I mentioned, are Arlene Banks, who has been a Marin Master Gardener since 2020. She's lived in San Rafael for over 30 years, and during that time has learned a lot about what grows in the Marin County climate and what doesn't grow so well. So she'll be sharing that information with us. Jerry Cooper has been a Master Gardener since 2012. She conducts garden walks, so she will come to one's home and advise on water-wise planting, water use, and appropriate plant choices. She leads habitat walks for second graders, which sounds like a lot of fun, and she's worked on the Falkirk Master Gardener demonstration gardens. So with that, Jerry is going to lead us off with the beginning of the program, and then Arlene will come in after that, and then I'll be back on to take your questions that Arlene and Jerry will answer. So thank you so much. And Jerry, you want to get going?
Thank you. How are we going to start? Let's see. Do I can I see the
you want the next slide? You're going to have to say next
slide.
for me.
Okay,
very good. Oops. All right, here we go.
All right. One thing we used to have in the title here was the one that we just saw was Marin Gardens. And indeed, this is a Ceanothus, which is a native plant of California. And notice the wonderful color. And the thing that I want to do this session is to emphasize a couple of ideas, one of which is that we need to realize that many of our plants are hybrids, and they also have different sizes, obviously. And size is another issue we need to think about, because one of our master gardeners did a presentation on, it was called, "It was so small when I planted it," but it obviously didn't stay small. And I've been a guilty party in that way, in that I planted a small palm tree and it didn't stay small, but you know, we deal with what we can. But what you want to do when you start thinking about your garden and where to put plants, think size and color, obviously, if that's what you're interested in. So this is a Ceanothus, which is a large one. And the one that I have in my backyard is over 15 feet and is just a delight. One thing to know if you have children is that you can take the blossoms of a Ceanothus and put a little water on it, and it will actually make a foam soap, which the indigenous residents did. Full sun to part shade. And I had a note here. No, that's okay. I won't read things to you. We'll just take a look. And if I have additional comments, I will make them. But one of the things, the ideas is that many of these plants need well-drained soil. Well, we have clay here in Marin. And so you really do need to think about either adding some perlite or adding material that will decompose so that it improves the soil. Ceanothus does tolerate clay. It attracts birds and butterflies and is deer resistant. Next. Westringia fruticosa or coast rosemary It does not have the scent of rosemary, but it's a wonderful little plant, and it isn't necessarily so small, can be 3 to 6 feet tall. But this picture you see here is a relatively small version, and it can be shaped like this is. And if you don't shape it, it can get kind of woody and big and rangy. And it comes in several colors of white or a blue, and this is sort of a lilac. Many soil types. Deer don't seem to like it. Take a look at that word resistant, though. If any of you have an open space in front of your house where deer can get, they will. And they will taste things that you have and may ruin your plants. We came up the street the other day and there was a huge buck by our mailbox and ready to eat my plants. But fortunately, the ones that I have in front are kind of furry. And so they, I'm trying to think, lamb's ears is what they are. And I chose them because deer don't like fuzzy things. They don't like that feeling in their mouth. They also don't care for scents, scents. So that if you do have a deer challenge, those are 2 things to keep in mind. Next, Achillea millefolium, or better as we know it as yarrow. And it comes, as I mentioned at the very beginning, we have many hybrids now. And here in California, many of them grow beautifully. The yarrow is often the yellow. Milleflorum is usually white. It's low growing, but it can grow up in different hybrids a little bit. Well-drained soil, again, just be aware of that. I sometimes think I'm not aware of it and I may get in trouble. The one thing that is so cool about yarrow is it has a flat top. You can't see that easily in this picture, but it's a great platform for butterflies to land on and rest. So that's fun. Can be in all different colors now: white, yellow, pink, magenta, even a rust color. Next. Thank you. Manzanita arctostaphylos densiflora, or Howard McMinn Manzanita, is another wonderful plant, and it's a native. And it takes a while to get established and does not like a watering in the summer. But when we say no water in the summer, we mean after it's established. Sometimes people will plant things saying, oh, well, this is water, resistant, or what, it doesn't have any problems with keeping in the heat. But that's not when it's just a baby. So you have to take care of plants when you put them in the first time. Can be 8 to 10 feet wide and 5 to 7 feet high. Late winter flowers. And again, those are wonderful. If you look at the shape of them and you know Spanish, Manzanita means little apples. And it does look like little apples. And the fruit looks like little apples and actually is edible. Likes good drainage. If you're on a hill, that it helps that because the water tends to go downhill and goes away. It's not, if you have a flat area or you've terraced your hill, be careful it's not just all clay, that you have some ways it's going to sink in. Attracts birds and moths, and it's really a wonderful plant, a big bushy dark green plant, and it's like it says densiflora. It can be pruned carefully so that you don't just cut it, but try to get in and cut and let air get to it. Next. Salvia greggii, and you might ask, well, are we supposed to go by the Italian names, the Latin names? It's always helpful if you can get the actual name. Now, this is Salvia greggii is purple, and that's an autumn sage. So your common name is autumn sage. But there's so many varieties, and they have different colors. Salvia's from Mexico, a lot of it. And so there's many colors, and they bloom at different times, and they have different requirements. So it's up to you to kind of look into the suggestions. Of course, a plant often will come with directions. Again, drought tolerant once it's established. The hummingbirds love it. Deer's resistant, and blooms summer and fall. So we'll be seeing some blooming pretty soon. Look out for it. Next. Next. Okay, let's see if we can get Shireen. Thank you. Leptospermum scoparium. Okay, and the one that is very often seen is a variety called Ruby Glow, which is a lovely red. This is a different, it's pink, but tea trees come from Australia, and they can be made into trees by limbing them up. And there are 2 slides here. So if you want to go to the next slide, that's fine too. Next.
Jerry, I have a couple comments that I wanted to share with you. So because I thought maybe you could incorporate them, and Arlene could incorporate them into your comments as you know about. One is, will any of the plants you're talking about do well in pots or containers? And the other is advice on pruning. Do these need pruning? Do these thrive in pruning, or is pruning ill-advised? So if you could address, as you talk about these, to the extent that you know,
I think that's fine.
Yeah, thank you so much.
The one thing I need to say about pruning is that if you plant a big plant, you're going to be trying to prune it a lot. And I refer, I'm thinking of a fellow who lives behind me who has a huge, I mean, it's going higher and higher, and it's going to cover my view of the Mount Tam. So I would say that try to, if you're going to want to have something that's a large plant, I can give you some tips as we go. Now, the tea tree, as you could see from the the other picture, is can be kept low. And again, if you buy the right hybrid, it will keep that size. So know your size. Don't try to buy a plant that gets big and then try to prune it to be small. That doesn't work as well. Sometimes it can be done, but you're going to be chasing the tail of the rabbit if you do that. The other thing was, pruning, and what was the other thing? The other thing that you want to do,
if they can grow in pots,
right?
If these tolerate containers. And the idea of pruning is, is it required to keep the plant healthy? And if they tolerate it well. So, I don't know if you know all that for each plant, but thank you for considering that.
I don't know that. That's a very good thing to have to look up and include in here, but it all kind of depends on the hybrid and the kind of plant it is. And a lot of times that leads me to where you can get information. A lot of times, our Bible, or one of the things that we refer to, is the Sunset Western Garden book. And it is at the library. And even though there may be an older version, it will have a lot of this information. So if it doesn't tolerate pruning, sometimes that will be said. Also, just using the internet for putting the name of a plant in or looking at different sites. We as master gardeners don't recommend specific places to go. But like Annie's Annuals has a wonderful website, and obviously has wonderful things to buy, but I would not say, oh, you have to go there. The tea tree, in order to become manageable size and decoratively the way you might like it, does lend to pruning. And by limbing up, that's what I mean, L-I-M-N. And the other reason you might want to prune is to not let something get so dense that you don't have any sun coming in. So there's Breath of Heaven, which is a plant you see a lot around here. Sometimes it's bright green, sometimes it's has lovely little pink things. And it tends to get very heavy on top, so the sun doesn't get in, and then it gets all woody in the bottom. So that's a plant that really needs to be cared for as far as letting sun in and also keeping it compact, or else it's going to get woody. Okay, so this tea trees are lovely colors, and there are about 3 or 4 different colors that you can get them. White, pink, and the ruby red are samples. Next. Oh, I didn't talk about being in a container. Most things that you want in a container, again, checking with your nursery is your best bet. Cistus can be in a container. It just depends on how much of a root mass it's going to develop. And that's just something you have to ask about when you get something. One person we had talked to us from UC said he would not encourage anyone to have a container garden. Well, that's because it has to be kept up with having good soil. You have to put the soil on every year and make sure sometimes repot. So if you don't mind doing that, it's second best, but it's still good. Excuse me. Cistus / hybridus, the kind of different hybrids, really a nice size, 3 feet high, 5 feet wide, full sun, hot sites. It can do very well with hot sites and low water. It has a very distinctive, sweet fragrance, and I don't know that I care for it, maybe because it reminds me of my piano teacher, and she had it growing in San Francisco in front of her house. And I loved her dearly, but it's just that memory, that fragrances carry memories with them. There are a couple of other plants I'll talk to you which have either strong fragrances, and cistus does, but it's a nice fragrance. Okay, next. Choisya ternata, Mexican orange, is a very nice big plant. It can be 4 to 8 feet wide and 8 feet tall. It does not like direct sun all the time, so it needs a little of part shade or part sun. It's also said that it could, because I have a little problem with mine, is it can be susceptible to mites or sucking insects. So sometimes we need to check if you see a problem, bring out your magnifying glass, and see if you see anything on it. it also comes in, I'd have to look out there, white and just, no, I'll do it when we have a break and tell you the other colors. Next. One of my favorites is Festuca californica or just fescue. Fescue is can be, and there's different varieties, a small plant, and it's kind of like a round little creature, and it can be used as a replacement for lawn if you do it multiple kinds, and one of the things I read, it says it likes to be cut back in the winter. I have not done that, but it does tend to dry out in the center and eventually doesn't look that good. So I sit down next to it and sort of start picking the dry ones out. Native to California is California Fescue. Really delightful plant. It can be tucked in a multiple way in a garden and carry your eye throughout the garden. Next. Oh, I think that's
mine. Yeah, that's mine. Jerry, I think you skipped one, the Tagetes lemonii. Do you want to go back to that now, or do you want to go back?
Let's see. How did we do
that? It
was
kind of halfway. It was the yellow flower.
Oh yeah, no, I know which one you mean.
Yeah,
and I was wondering. Yeah,
there it is. There it is.
And I always pronounced that when I was taking classes, Tagetes, but others have said Tagetes, Tagetes. I don't know either, so I have to look that up. Lemonii, Mexican marigold, and talking about having a strong scent, it really does. So if you have a nice big space at the back of the garden, it's a good place to go because it's very colorful. It's can be 6 feet tall and tolerates clay and attracts pollinators. So it's a good plant, but be aware or smell it before you buy it. Okay, thank you. Arlene?
Okay.
I'm going to forward, and Arlene, you tell me exactly when to stop.
Berberis thunbergii.
There
it is. Well, thank you, Jerry. That was interesting. And that last one, the Tagetes, I call it Tagetes lemonii. I have that in my garden, and it was just fabulous. Just about a month ago, just big and yellow flowers and like an explosion of color. So it was lovely. All right, so the Berberis thunbergii, rose glow, also known as Japanese barberry, and it is a deciduous shrub, which means it loses its leaves for part of the year, and it does like full sun. It does have flowers in the spring, but they're minimal and really they're not significant, really. It does have fall berries, and so it attracts the birds, the berries. It needs low to medium water. It does like any soil, and it can be in a container. And I see it when I go to the JCC. They have very large containers in front of their building there, and they have the Berberis thunbergii growing in it. And so low maintenance, that's great. Deer resistant. It has slender arching spiny branches that are really quite dramatic, and with sharp spines. So you want to be sure you're not planting it where children will play, or they fall into it, it will hurt them. It is indigenous to Japan, and let's see, what else can I tell you about it? It is well, that's pretty much all I'm going to say. It is a member of the Berberis family. And most of these plants that we're talking about are, one, low maintenance, and two, somewhat drought tolerant, although, certainly to begin, like Jerry was saying, to start a plant, they need to be watered regularly. So, and, they're established usually in a year or 2 years is when you can sort of hold back on the water. Let's see. All right, so why don't we go to the next slide then? Okay, Lavatera maritima, Mediterranean tree mallow. This plant is can look just like that, what it looks like in the picture. It is very showy. It has these good size, 2-inch wide, sort of pink flowers with a purple center, and just a massive amount of them. This will be nice in your front yard, when your guests are arriving, they see that plant and it'll be a great showpiece. And the leaves are, they're kind of shaped like a maple leaf, and they're gray-green in color. And likes full sun. As you can see, it can grow very tall, and it needs to be cut back every year. We talked about, people want to know about that. So most everything needs to be clipped. I think everything I'm talking about needs to be pruned at least once a year. Because if you don't, they get stringy and woody and not as productive. So, all right, let's see, what else can I say about this? Here we want to prune it at least once a year. And it is known to be deer resistant, and I believe it is. So, and it's okay for containers. All right, next slide. All right. Lantana montevidensis, trailing lantana, trailing shrub verbena. This is evergreen. It is a good ground cover. It also cascades over walls if you're lucky. And it likes full sun. Again, low water, needs well-drained soil. Deer resistant, although in my experience, I have seen deer eat those flowers. So just so you know, it attracts butterflies and can bloom all summer. It has a long bloom season. It's good in hanging baskets, so it'll work in containers. I understand that you shouldn't overwater it because that'll reduce the number of flowers. This one is lilac colored, but maybe you've seen the lantana with all different colors, white and pink and sort of a multicolored orange. Should be pruned or hard in the spring, and it is native to South America. All right. So next slide, please. All right. Ribes sanguineum, glutinosum, also known as winter currant or pink flowering currant. Another showy plant. The flowers are, it's like a drooping red and white clusters, and it has berries in the fall. It is on the coast, full sun. Inland, it needs some shade. And it's good in many soil types, including clay. And the blooms come out in winter and spring. And it attracts the birds, flowers, hummingbirds, and bees. Perfect plant for Marin. It is native to the coast ranges of California and British Columbia, and it can grow up to 6,000 feet. We don't need that here in Marin because nobody's at 6,000 feet. Okay, next slide, please. Salvia Waverly. Waverly sage, and as Jerry has says, a lot of the salvias are from initially indigenous to Mexico, central and eastern Mexico. This is an evergreen, a tender shrub. It likes some water, but tolerates the drought. And another one that attracts bees, butterflies, hummingbirds. And it does need to be deadheaded. So you take those flowers off regularly and prune to shape. So every year it needs to be pruned for the best appearance and keeping it compact. Yes, and you want to cut it back before the spring growth. All right, flowers are very showy, like whorls of purple and white flowers. Quite nice. Next slide, please. Nepeta racemosa, catmint. People tell me that their cats will roll in it because they just love it. And they like this, I guess they like the scent and the feel of it. It's also known as Persian catmint, evergreen, perennial, likes full sun, deer resistant. I have it in my front yard. It's very happy there. It blooms spring to fall. The flowers are. This is a kind of a microscoped look. It sort of looks smaller. They are really smaller than this looks. Very pretty though. The green is a kind of a gray green. It is native to the Caucasus, Turkey, Iran. Makes a great ground cover. Has a minty scent. It's from the family, the mint family, the Laminaceae family. And low maintenance. All right, next slide, please. All right, Calandrinia grandiflora, rock purslane. This is a succulent, and it's got the really showy pink flowers. This is a wonderful sample of what it looks like. In my neighborhood, people have it, and it's just wonderful. The green succulent part is low, and then the flowers just kind of shoot out like 4th of July. They come out, and so you can see many pink flowers. It's just lovely. And it does like the full sun. It's great for rock gardens, spring to fall. It's just a really great workhorse in your garden. And it's native to Chile and can be propagated by cuttings. It will work in the container. The flowers are sort of poppy-like. In the morning, they're small, and then as the day goes on, they open up and then get small again in the evening, and then open up in the morning. Very pretty. But it needs to be cut down. You have to cut those flower stalks off regularly, so to encourage more growth, more flowers. Okay, next, please. All right, Epilobium canum, California Fuchsia. It is semi-deciduous perennial. In my experience, it's green all year, and the flowers can come out all year. And it likes full sun when it's established, low water. Again, deer resistant. Is known to self-seed, attracts the hummingbirds, and the bees love it. I have it in my yard, and I cut a piece so I could show you. I can show you the flowers, really how it's a tubular. Maybe you can see it there, tubular flower, and the bees just love getting in there. And I think the green is really quite nice too. The green leaf. It looks like Christmas in your front yard. It's beautiful, or backyard, wherever. I'm not sure about it being in containers, but it's always worth a try. With containers, you do have to water them more, and you want to make sure they don't get too hot, because containers can make the soil hotter than it wants to be. If it's in the ground, the soil is in general cooler. So yeah. All right. So, and it needs to be cut back in the spring to renovate. Next slide, please. And this is the Coleonema porcellum, sunset gold, pink breath of heaven. Jerry was talking about this plant. It has a great color. The leaves are small and needle-like, and they are chartreuse, just like that in the picture. And the flowers can be pink or white. And this is the kind of plant that needs to be pruned at least once a year, but you don't want to take it down too hard, because it'll just end up not growing more leaves. So it's sort of walking a tightrope on this one. It has a nice fragrance, and great on the way into your house. If you brush by it, the fragrance comes up, and a great contrast to the other foliage in your yard, because of the chartreuse color contrast with the other greens. It is native to South Africa, and in Marin, you can see it bloom anytime. So, all right, next slide. Grevillea noellii, Noel's grevillea or hummingbird bush. And so this is what it looks like when it blooms. It's got the little red sort of tubular flowers. And in my experience, it does bloom in the winter. Blooms winter, spring. And I thought initially, when I heard about this plant and I had it, I thought, well, they called it noellii because of Christmas, but I think it's named after someone named Noel. But it's fast growing, it's hardy. The spines are really sharp to touch, so not one that you want to have a place where children are going to run into it, because it'll hurt. But that makes it great, because that makes it deer proof. The deer do not want to eat it. It hurts. I imagine it hurts their mouth. So most grevillea, and there are many kinds of grevillea, are native to Australia, but this one is a native Californian. So if you're looking for native plants, this is one for you. And okay, so they on this slide we say it likes full sun, but I have seen it flourish in the shade. And that is the end of my presentation. So maybe we have some questions from the group. Shireen?
Hi, yes, thank you very much. It was great to hear from you both, Jerry and Arlene. There's a lot of information. And so I just, please, if you do have questions, put them in the chat, and I will get to them in a second. I do want to mention, since there were so many points that we are, and I noticed some people coming late, I just want to remind everyone that we are recording this so you can view it later on our YouTube website. So if you want to, review anything that was said, or kind of maybe you didn't have time to write down all the plants. So the question that comes in first is, are any of these plants poisonous for dogs? Jerry, you'll need to unmute yourself to answer, but if either Arlene or Jerry know the answer to this one, that would be helpful.
To my knowledge, no, there's no poison in this case. However, I have in Water Walk that someone said that their dog had eaten mushrooms in the garden. And I have a friend who has the same thing and had to whisk her dog to be stomach pumped. So it's a good thing to be asking about. But to my
Mhm.
knowledge, none of the ones that we have talked about are poisonous. But there are a lot of plants that are poisonous. And if your dog is one that goes out and chomps on things, know what's in your garden.
Mhm.
Yeah, because one time we had a talk on poisonous plants, and his theory was there are so many poisonous things, just don't go eating things. And I did a presentation on, what is it? Now I'm not thinking about it, but at any rate, it was on ones that grow alongside the highway. And
Oleander.
oleander is definitely poisonous, and
Yeah.
it actually has killed cattle up on Burdell.
Mm.
But the other one is, I'm thinking about heliotrope, which is not it at all. It's a lovely plant. But at any rate, there's a plant that grows that looks very similar to anise, and it has white flowers, and it has spotted spots on its stem, and that is deadly. So that's a very, I'm sorry, I don't have the name at the tip of my tongue, but if I do, I'll tell you what it is. But just be aware, there are things that can be not, you don't want to go tasting it.
Yeah, that's poison hemlock.
Thank you, Cinda.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So we have some more questions, but that was a really good point because many of us have pets and we want to keep them safe. There was a comment early on that said many nurseries don't sell, and excuse my pronunciation, Choisya, Choisya anymore because it carried some sort of disease. And someone else mentioned that deer will nibble on this plant. So I don't know if either of you want to jump in about that or just leave that as it is. No?
I didn't know anything about the it being not good for animals, but I did see that it is susceptible sometimes to insects.
So our next question is, how do you propagate Ceanothus?
I don't know.
Okay. Well, that was succinct.
However, if you prune it, it does not like to be pruned or moved. So that's they don't like.
Okay, so we got some information there. Will Salvia greggii, Greggii, grow well next to Phormium? Phormium.
I don't know that either particularly, but they're very different looking plants. Phormium is the one that goes straight up and is very angular. And the other is got sort of soft edges and lovely blue. I think you'd want to ask a nursery person about that. But visually, you'd have to think that out. Now, I will tell you one thing that I used the Phormium for was as a windbreak, because my Japanese maple was getting in the wind and getting windburn. So I put up a tall Phormium, and it stopped that problem. So one generation away from the original question.
But a useful bit of information. Arlene, did you want to jump in with a comment?
Well, I'm curious why the questioner is asking that question. Is it because of they're concerned about it having a negative effect on the plant, or just how it looks together, or whether they both need the same kind of sun, or
well, I guess
soil, or
yeah, good point. So Susan, if you want to pop a follow-up into the chat, I'll get to it in a moment. Our next question is the catmint the mint that spreads so rapidly?
Yes, it is known to be, it can be invasive, but I have it in my garden, and it's not spreading too much. Yeah.
Yeah, sometimes we have that whole idea about of getting in the way and being invasive, is that there are things that are really invasive, and then there are things that just bloom a lot, and they reach out, and you just have to cut them back.
Yeah, it's not. I don't think it's known to be, horribly invasive.
Yeah. Like blackberry bushes.
Yeah, like for me, if it grows a little more and spreads out, yay, then got more catmints, But yeah, if you don't want it all, I don't think it's the kind that will spread all over your yard and not be able to be tamed. It's a good ground cover.
Okay, thank you.
Mm.
When is a good time to prune hydrangea is our next question.
After it's bloomed, and you cut it right back to almost the ground. And it has lovely bud nodes, so you can see where you want to cut it down to if you don't want it to be cut down all the way. But yeah, it's about now.
Okay.
Now the flowers start being the kind that you take off in order to dry them.
Okay, good information then too. You can dry them. So I wanted to point out that there's a very nice link in the chat. It's a list for plants poisonous to your pets. And Stephanie popped that in. So if everyone can get to their chat, I'm assuming everyone knows how to do that, I hope. If not, you can email me and I'll send it to you. But it's I can read it. Oh, it's really long, but it's anyway, ASPCA.org list. And I think that's a great suggestion because it's a lot of information to retain. So the follow-up to the two plants going next to each other was, Susan clarified, it's water and soil compatibility. Any other suggestions for something to plant between two phoriums? So I guess that's the question is, there are two phoriums and something needs to go in between them. Any thoughts?
Well, I've got, I mix up all my plants all the time. And even though it's not, and it works fine. Like I've got a Manzanita, and then I've got phormium in the back, but the phormium are big and they grow big. And so you have to keep it, you don't want to block what's behind it. So that's just an idea that you want something smaller that would grow in between.
Okay.
But we have clay soil and phormium grows okay.
Great, thank you. A listener comments, we had a nicely established hydrangea, but after it was pruned, only one flower bloomed this year and last year, so it did not recover. Any thoughts on that?
They're very they love water. So
And
this
shade.
is not a good, and they do like shade. But if you let them go to the point where you didn't water very much, that could be because they're stressed. They're
okay.
They're not, we wouldn't have that in the list of 20 Marin plants because they're shade loving and they're water loving.
Yeah.
But they're beautiful. But
got it.
Yeah.
So, thank you though. Speaking of shade, Peter is asking, do you have any suggestions for shade-loving plants? There were a few plants on the list that did well in shade or both circumstances. Do you have anything either to repeat those or to add to plants that will do well in the shade?
There's a very old-fashioned plant I have. It's called an abelia, Abelia, and it has lovely pink flowers. And the only thing is it has great big saucer-like leaves, and they get dry, and so you have to clip them off. I mean, they're underneath. But I really like that. They also have the Japanese lanterns, which grows quite well in semi-shade, and camellias, rhododendrons, but that can get you into trouble these days. because of the camellias, or rather rhododendrons carry the oak death. So, and I haven't heard much about that lately, but there are vectors for it.
So it depends on whether you're talking about full shade, or there's absolutely no sun, or just part shade. The winter currant can take part shade, and the Salvia Waverly can take part shade. The Grevillea noelli can take part shade.
Okay.
Mhm.
Well, thank you. Those are a lot of options then. And I just wanted to let everyone know we've got about 5 or 6 minutes left. So if you have any more questions for Jerry and Arlene, this is your chance to put them in the chat, and we will attempt to address them. So we'll give that another minute or so for you to formulate your thoughts there. And of course, I wanted to mention, I really like the Master Gardener website, and there are a lot of plant lists there and great suggestions there. So that's another wonderful resource. Sharon asks, any good time to plant?
Now.
Right. The fall. This is the best time. Because the winter rains will help establish.
We hope there's winter rains.
Yeah, let's count on winter rains. And don't forget to use compost, even with the California natives,
Maybe
I will put in on that. I just read that actually natives don't like amended soil.
Well,
so I don't know. That would be something you can research.
They seem to like it. We're in my yard.
Good.
Yeah, they grow well with. I mean, not tons of compost, but a little bit of compost goes a long way too.
It doesn't hurt. Yeah, right.
Yeah.
A couple of excellent questions are just coming in. Are there any suggestions on where to plant some of the bigger plants so that they are not a fire hazard?
Well, nowadays they want us to plant everything 4 to 5 feet away from our house. So the farther away from your house, yeah, and the fences. So the farther away from your house, the safer it is. And you want to keep anything that's big, you want to keep it trimmed and pruned, so there's not dead wood on it. So that would be the best thing. So away from your house and well trimmed.
Did you want to add anything, Jerry?
There are kinds of plants that they're recommending with Fire Safe Marin. They have a list of plants also that are to be avoided, such as rosemary, lavender, things with a scent, and oils. But you can check that out.
So another good resource would be firesafemarin.org for lists of plants to avoid. And it looks like our last question or comment, I guess it's both. So this Barbara writes that they had a well-established wisteria that died this year. Was this likely due to a lack of water or possibly over pruning? What are your thoughts on that?
I don't know. I think, yeah, but I would think if something just gives up and doesn't do something, it's stressed. So my thinking would be it could be either one. But there is a workshop that Marin Master Gardeners has given, I think almost every year, is pruning wisteria. And there's things you have to be aware of. Google it.
Well, with that, I'll just do a last minute call. We've got 2 minutes left, but we're getting a lot of thank yous, great information, great ideas. I want to echo that. It was a really well organized, thoughtful, and informative program. So I want to thank you both for your generosity and sharing your knowledge and for your years and years of gardening so that you can educate us all. And with that, I'm just going to stop recording and say have a great afternoon, everyone.